Hi beauties, and welcome back to my channel. I am coming to you guys with a brand new video. I wanted to put this out during Black History Month, but I decided to just go ahead and put it out now. That I did because I wanted to take the time to really go through and talk about different ways I feel like Black women have either started or popularized beauty trends. And so I really wanted to just talk about like starting from history. I mean, there's a lot more history. I just kind of put in some of my favorite parts. So the first era that we're going to talk about where I felt like Black women really started just setting trends. And of course, we've always been doing that, but where we really started to see, influence, right? So let's start with the Y2K era.
Nice to meet you. How are you feeling? You feel like the big princess tonight?
I'm feeling like the princess of the night with all of my guys around me. It's just great.
And if you don't know what the Y2K era is, it is an era of, it was actually in the 1990s, 1998, that kind of era of where they were having glitches with the computer system when you put in the year 2000. And so it was called the Y2K problem, which is a bit of history. And then they basically wanted to, they basically thought we were gonna have issues and glitches and all this kind of stuff. And so it started inspiring fashion and makeup and all these ideas of what the future would look like. And so this was something that really inspired makeup and fashion.
I did learn a lot of things on the trip, and I'm releasing a movie because we took our camera with us, and so we get to let all of you guys see what happened on the 30 days.
And you'll see that in terms of like what colors were chosen and how the makeup styles were.
Good evening, you fine Nubian princess.
Her singing career prompted a rare appearance by her father, Joe Jackson.
A lot of the music videos at the time, Aaliyah, TLC, Destiny's Child.
Anne was a superstar. She ruled the runways of the international fashion scene for almost 15 years. Her grace, versatility, professionalism, and above all, her extraordinary beauty made her a natural. But in all those 15 years modeling, Iman says she never found makeup that suited her skin tone.
A lot of the R&B acts, they started to be influenced by this idea of what the future would look like. And you started to see a lot of different styles. There's a lot of like metallics in makeup. And this was a time of a lot of big Black owned brands. Well, actually the first time we're seeing Black owned brands like Iman Cosmetics. And notably, you're seeing like models like Naomi Campbell and Tyra Banks now are coming on the scene and really starting to, like become very popular. So you're seeing a bigger need for cosmetics that fit darker skinned women and Black women. And before that, we didn't really have that.
I'm saying basically, if I don't say yes up front, will you leave me alone or will you try again?
They didn't have makeup that looked like their skin tone. And then, we had companies that started to pop up like Black Radiance, Iman Cosmetics, all these different brands that were able to cater to Black women. So I want to briefly touch on Afrofuturism, which is basically an idea or cultural aesthetic, if you want to call it that, that talks about Afrocentricity. It talks about science fiction. It encompasses kind of the idea of Black people seen in a different realm that also includes the past and the future. And it's a really interesting idea that you see a lot in movies and you see it a lot in fashion. And it gained its popularity in the 1990s. Now, while there was a huge Afrocentric influence on makeup and like that, these trends that Black women were starting and popularizing, there was also this undercurrent of influence from Arabic culture. And this is something that I couldn't really find much research about, but besides in comments and besides the people who shared the same nostalgia with me about this, but there was a lot of Arabic music, styling and makeup choices that went into hip hop and R&B culture within the 90s. And I just thought that was interesting to include in this video because Arabic makeup has really been influential in so many different cultures. So now after the era of the 90s, and we usher in a new era of the 2000s. Now the first part of the 2000s still had a little bit of that Afrofuturism, still had a lot of those metallic details, and the idea of what the future would look like. Now, as we get into the later of the 2000s, like 2002, 2003, we start to see a shift. There's many different aesthetics that are going on at that time, but now we also see almost a subgenre, if you want to call it, of blackness, of makeup and Afrocentricity that's called most notably neo soul. And you see this in artists like Erykah Badu, Music Soul Child, India Irie. These are some of the people, D'Angelo, who were influencing in this time within music. But I saw, as well as the people in that time, a switch in the fashions and in the way that makeup and clothing was being looked at.
Hey Moesha, how you doing? I'm cool, what's up? How about...
And how it was being used to express, like in terms of expression, I'm sorry. So I call this section subculture because it's culture, but it's also a part of a culture that doesn't really go with the mainstream, kind of went against it. And so this is honestly one of my favorite parts of history.
The status quo being like, no, fuck you, like, I'm gonna do what I want and you're not gonna like it and I don't care.
I never thought that like anybody would like accept me, but you're acting too white, or like, why are you trying to dress like white people?
Big alternative is when you like take that, yeah, and you write it on a tissue and you wipe your ass with it.
Like they wouldn't classify a darker skinned person to be alternative. They would classify you as being ghetto. Colorism is a big part of why Black people can't just be expressive of themselves, and white supremacy as well. Let's put that in there.
I don't have to be the best. I don't have to know all the knowledge to mosh and fucking punch people in the head if that's what I want to do. I feel like there's nothing more goth or punk or alternative than being Black.
All right, y'all. Now to my favorite part of the video. We're gonna be talking about Black alternative girls, okay? If you don't know, and now you know, I was a Black alternative girl, middle school, high school days, okay? Listen to nothing but like, you know the kind of music, right? And I definitely was a scene girl, a scene kid. It was just what was popular then, and so definitely I had to fit into it. But I do incorporate those elements now into who I am, because that's still very much a part of me, that identifying with the emo-ness and the rebelliousness. Hello, I am a Scorpio after all. So I want to talk a little bit about alternative girls, and of course we did not start this. I'm talking about popularizing, because there are a lot of Black alternative girls who don't get the recognition for their contributions to beauty and to a lot of the trends that you see on TikTok and a lot of the things that you see that are popular, and they're not really getting their due credit because they're like, you're not the cool kid, you know what I mean? You're not with the mainstream Blackness, so we're just gonna you off to the side and not really acknowledge you. So last but not least, we're gonna be talking about modern culture and what I feel like is kind of encompassing and meshing all together the Y2K, the subculture, the neo soul, the alternativeness, and kind of wrapping it up and creating what we have, modern makeup trends, right? So let me just first start with the era of the Black beauty influencer. Yes, I cannot talk about this video without acknowledging how your girl started to learn how to do makeup at all, because I had Black women to count on, to go to YouTube, to be like, does this shade look good on me?
All I could think of was my country.
On the history of beauty influencing, from the beginning, the average female YouTube user was doing something beauty related. Whether it was makeup and hair tutorials, fashion hauls, that was the thing for girls to do when they got on YouTube. Like I said, gaming and comedy were a part of the early ages of YouTube, and that was more of like a man thing, but the beauty world was definitely for the girls, okay? And I think this really allowed consumers to capitalize off of being a consumer.
How do I match this foundation to my neck? How, you know, like, if it wasn't for the black beauty influencer, I definitely would still be ashy, and I want to acknowledge them very quickly, okay? And then I want to talk about many different little sub genres, if you want to call it, of beauty that have emerged and been popularized or started by Black women. And a lot of these are, you know, have been really influenced by, and notably the 2010s, especially with stars like Rihanna and Nicki Minaj, who their outrageous fashions and their makeup choices have influenced us.
Because I love the Harajuku culture, because the way they dress is the way I am on the inside. Like,
I'm 40, and someone recently told me that I didn't dress my age and I didn't look my age. I both disagree and I kind of don't understand.
Then, and they still continue to influence us now. And we had those girls to look up to and be like, you know what, I want to wear what Rihanna's wearing on the red carpet. I want that wig that Nicki Minaj has. And so I think it's important to look at those and how it's influencing us now. And then I also wanted to briefly put up a couple people who have really inspired me now. And of course, they're not on the mainstream stardom level as a Nicki Minaj or Rihanna or Fenty Beauty or a Rare Beauty. But they are Black girls who are using their platforms and what they, you know, their realm of influence. And they're using that to really set trends, to break barriers. And so I wanted to acknowledge them.
So one of the reasons why I gave you guys a brief history of some of the culture behind Black entertainment music is because Tyla, I feel like the big issue that has happened with her recently was her moving into a more American audience and her trying to market herself towards Black Americans, and not being educated about what culture and how she's coming into music. Yes, she is African and she is mostly in the genre of piano. I believe that's how you say it. But you are moving into and also dressing yourself and aesthetically looking like a lot of the Black women that came before you. And then also at the same time, being unable to answer articulately and with like politically correct, like in political correctness, be able to talk about your Blackness and also in a way that doesn't offend Black Americans. So that's really the big issue and reason why I wanted to give a brief history. Now, Tyla herself has said that she's inspired by Rihanna and Aaliyah. And while Rihanna is not a American woman, she's from Barbados. Aaliyah is a Black American woman, and she's a Black staple in America for, you know, her contributions to R&B and her style and just her overall influence. And so to not acknowledge the Black American blueprint in your musical style is very dangerous. My last and final thoughts is that Tyla's interview on The Breakfast Club was a very pivotal moment in deciding how she would be perceived in the eyes of the American public. Now, do I think she cannot come back from that? With the American public, you could just make a good song, get on the billboard, and, you know, people probably like you again. But I will say that that moment should have definitely been handled a lot better. I don't know who was on her team that didn't advise her that when you try to push into the American market, and especially with marginalized communities like Black people and Latinos and different things, that you must come and show acknowledgement of the contributions they've created, and also, define who you are, all skin folk and kin folk, okay? And before I sign off, don't forget to click the subscribe button, like this video, give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my newsletter over at the Red Ruby Club. Become a Ruby and follow other women who are on their journey of self-discovery. Bye!